Hello, everyone. Oh, it's so nice to be back again with our wonderful Vitamin Lab practitioners. It's always exciting. Last Wednesday of the month, usually the last Thursday of the month, but we've got Halloween coming up, so we thought we'd do it on the Wednesday. I feel really passionate about this topic, and so I'm so pleased that you're able to join this evening because we have some wonderful tools at Vitamin Lab to help you prescribe some fantastic supplements, something really unique for this particular patient population, which is a huge patient population. So it's always a pleasure to be with you guys these evenings. I just love our practitioners. You guys are just the best. So innovative, always trying new things, always experimenting, always learning a lot. So love chatting with our Vitamin Lab practitioners. So we're at 8 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. The chat is open. So if you want to pop any questions in, or if you can't hear me, or if there's any sort of improvements, please let me know. But let's get going. So tonight we're talking about parental burnout and supplement strategies for an emerging crisis. And this was something that I could feel was brewing in my practice, as probably many of you can. But then when it was publicly announced by Dr. Murthy as the Surgeon General of the US, it just was no surprise to me. And I'm just really happy to dive into this topic with you guys tonight. So we're going to start with why. We're going to just sort of do a high-level overview of the state of parenting, what are parents sort of managing and dealing with, and then subsequently, what are the types of supplement prescriptions that correlate to the symptoms that they're experiencing and the troubles that they're having, because there's both acute things going on, but there's a lot of different chronic stresses and strains. And what I love about our medicine, functional medicine, botanical medicine in particular, which we'll talk about today, is we have a whole host of different tools that we can use to mitigate against long-term stress, to help the body build resilience. We have nootropics as well. I'll cover 3 that are very popular, just so that we're really clear on how they function in the body. And yeah, it's going to help you quickly recognize when you can formulate. And we're going to talk about the delightful prescribing. So how to amaze your patients, build your brand, have a few protocols under your belt that you can easily reach for. And you're going to be able to tweak these, really make them your own, which is what I personally love about Vitamin Lab, is you get to create your own unique combinations that patients can't find elsewhere. So, hey, my name is Dr. Lydia. I'm a naturopathic doctor. I've been in practice for a long time, 14 years. But I will say, in regards to this topic in particular, where my practice is, I'm in a bedroom community, kind of a suburban community of Toronto. And so I have a lot of parents. Probably 80% of my practice are parents at various stages in the parenting game, because let's be honest, kids don't move out like they used to. So sometimes I'm dealing with, 70-year-old patients who still have people living at home where they're taking care of their grandkids. So there's a lot of like multi-generational, and then like postpartum care and people who have just had babies. So yeah, it'd be interesting to know if you guys treat a lot of parents in your practice as well, but I know I certainly do. Okay, so let's talk about what is going on with parents. And so the impetus for this presentation was really the Surgeon General's advisory, basically making a widespread statement that parenting is a health risk. And when I heard this, it was both like shocking and not shocking. Like, I don't think anybody was like wildly surprised by this, but at the same time, like, what are we doing? Like, we can't just have millions and millions of parents struggling day in and day out and think that that's not going to have profound impacts on our society at large, and certainly our children and our futures. So anything that we can be doing to, mitigate this, and really kind of offer practical solutions for people, because, we'll get into it, but I found a lot of the recommendations were kind of more so at the policy level. And these are not easy problems to solve, as we'll discuss. So in the beginning of the document, basically, his main statement, Dr. Murthy's main statement, was raising children is sacred work and it should matter to all of us. So whether or not we're parents, I'm actually not a parent, but it matters to me tremendously because I care about our society. I care about my friends and my family and my patients, and I want children to be well. So I just think this is really important. There's 63 million parents in the US, and there's also millions and millions of informal caregivers. So shout out to all the grandparents who are raising kids, or aunties and siblings who raise up kids, foster parents, and I will also say that I have a lot of teachers in my practice as well, and I'm really concerned about our educators. A lot of our educators are experiencing burnout because the parents are burnt out and the kids are really struggling. So there's quite a ripple effect with parents not being okay. So I think collectively, like this is important work to be doing. So I'm really excited to talk about, just how we can formulate for this population. So this statement really stood out to me. So basically 41% of parents say that, most days they're so stressed they cannot function, and 48% are saying that their stress is completely overwhelming. And this is compared to other adults, 20% and 26%, I guess, of non-child rearing people. And I don't know about you or what you find in your practice, but I actually find that my patients don't over exaggerate their stress. Like for many of them, they've been sort of low key stressed for so long that to them, it's just pretty normal. So to say that, 41% of parents say that they're stressed most days, like that number is probably higher. That's probably more severe than they're, even letting on. But these are big, big numbers. These are millions and millions of people. Like, so for example, 65 million people in the US being parents. And, if we take about half of that, I was really struggling. That's basically the population of Canada inside the US that is struggling people on a day-to-day basis who feel completely overwhelmed and burned out. And I can't even, the impacts of that, I don't think we even fully understand what that could potentially be down the line. So I think this is just important work. Thank you for showing up tonight. Thank us all for working on this. And, if you're a parent as a healthcare provider, let's take care of you too, quite frankly. So what are parents struggling with personally? Because I kind of looked at the struggles that were, written in the document, and there was personal struggles that parents have to carry. A lot of it is financial in this day and age. People are struggling to pay their mortgages, to put food on the table with basic needs. And I don't care who you are, if you're struggling with basic needs of food and shelter, you're going to have tremendous levels of stress. Very few people will sleep well at night with those sorts of things. We're looking at increasing parental isolation. So that whole "it takes a village to raise a child," well, that's a wonderful sentiment. A lot of people simply do not feel like they have a village. That's certainly the case for me in my suburban neighborhood. People drive into their driveways, their big, beautiful homes, and the kids play in the backyard or inside, and they don't even know their neighbors. And there's just a lot of isolation because they're hustling. They're trying to get their kids to violin practice and coming off our commuter train to get to the daycare on time. And there just isn't a lot of connection. People move away. I actually find this quite a bit in the US. I find it interesting just as a Canadian, kind of watching people move state to state. You'll move to Texas for a job, and maybe you're from Oklahoma and you're just displaced from your people, but it's very common for people to be moving. Parents simply do not feel like they have enough hours in the day to do everything at the level that they kind of think they should be doing things. So we're shooting on ourselves a lot. There's certainly a lot of insomnia and sleep issues that was kind of independently listed. And that was, certainly people with young kids are going to have sleep issues, but that's sort of like an ongoing stress for many of us. And then this was something that I didn't sort of really take into consideration enough, but we have a lot of people who are immigrating to the US, immigrating to Canada, and they have other struggles of assimilation and figuring out new systems and getting their kids enrolled in things. And sometimes there's language barriers, or there can be cultural barriers where you're having to sort of navigate new systems. And this wasn't an obvious thing to me, but then upon reading it, of course that's obvious. Sometimes we have undocumented people who are trying to figure out themselves in society. So there's just these tremendous stressors on parents. And you'll see, to me, I almost got a bit bummed when I read this report, for kind of obvious reasons, but also because these are not easy problems to solve. I don't know how we're going to solve the high cost of food, or, creating more hours in the day. People are going to work, that people need to work these crazy, at least 40-hour work weeks. So I kind of became a little bit discouraged, but thankfully, working through this presentation, I was there's more that we can do that I wasn't fully taking into account. And then parents are super, super worried about their kids. So they are worried, for starters, is my kid going to be successful in this world? Are they going to have a profession? Are they going to be able to pay off student loans? Are they going to be able to get into universities? And, the other day I was chatting with my friend, and her daughter does math enrichment a couple times a week. And when I was a kid, sometimes you would do extra math classes, or maybe some of the gifted kids would, but it wasn't like a standard thing. But now she was saying, Lydia, she's like, everybody does it. Everybody's kid is an extra curricular math and science and reading. And if you're not doing that, you almost feel like you're falling behind. So I feel like there's a tremendous pressure on parents. It's like, is my kid doing enough of these extracurricular activities? Like, do they need to play the flute and speak Mandarin and also like be really good at their fractions and timetables? And, social media, I think, is quite terrifying for parents, honestly, with what's taking place, and just sort of the secret conversations and secret world that your teen or preteen might be engaging in that you have trouble keeping track of. I think childcare is a huge issue for people, just being able to afford it, getting your kid into the right type of childcare, and also playing with your kids. This was something that is new. So I was listening to a New York Times article about a podcast about parenting, and there's a new phrase that was new to me. Maybe you've heard of it before, called intensive parenting. That's kind of the phase that we're in now. And now parents are expected to spend quality time with their kids, meaning like real play time with their kids. And I think there's, good research evidence to support that connection is important. But I asked my parents when they were being raised up. My parents were born in the 50s, and I asked them, like, did your mom ever like play with you? And like, my dad comes from one of 11 kids. He's 10 brothers and sisters, and his mom never really played with him. She was around, she was there, she was cooking, she was nursing, she was doing things. But like there's an expectation for parents to be like down on the floor, like doing pretend play with their kids. And so like that was another stressor about, am I spending the right time? 3/4 of parents are worried about mental health issues in their kids, anxiety and depression. And this was something that came up specifically in the US population, which is what this document is about. But 3/4 of parents are actually worried about school shootings and safety at school. And I don't know the burden of that feeling, but that was something that came up in the document. So these are big systemic worries. And it left me feeling like, okay, what can we even do about this stuff? But thankfully, we're going to talk tonight about some ways that we can really support our parents. So the solutions for healthcare providers. So just summarizing what was presented in the document. And for a lot of us, I think as functional medicine providers, we're going to be like, to me, I felt like, yeah, like I get this. So prioritizing preventative care. Like that's not a newsflash to anybody on this webinar, I'm sure. We're all in the business of preventative care. And quite frankly, like reading that in a report is almost a little bit insulting to us, because we've been talking about this for like years and years and years, many of us. And we don't get a lot of support, I would say, like our food systems, our mental health systems, our ability for parents to have time to even pursue preventative care. I would say, there's a lot of systemic changes that probably need to be there. I don't think that's necessarily on us, because we do try. Screening parents for mental health challenges. I think many of us in the functional medicine space, we're quite aware of the mind-body connection, and we're talking to patients about their emotional health and what's going on in their life. And are you still arguing with your mother-in-law, and is your boss still a jerk? Like we know our patients pretty well. Referring to community organizations, that was mentioned as a solution. And again, I'm not sure about you, but many of our community organizations are quite underfunded. So I'm not really necessarily seeing a lot of government support for all of these community organizations that are supposed to be supporting parents. I also don't see parents having a ton of time always to join in different community events, but yes, fine, being in a community is great. Probably also depends a lot on where you live and what sort of resources you have. And then collaborating with mental health professionals. Well, in my case, if you want a therapist in Canada, you pretty much have to pay for it or have insurance. So I don't know if in the US they're going to be moving towards, incorporating them more so in the healthcare system. But again, I'm seeing these as like big, systemic, slow-moving, bureaucratic things that are hopefully going to change. All of them are wonderful suggestions, but as for us as functional medicine doctors, like we're quite solution-oriented, generally speaking, and like, what can we do now? So this is sort of what I think we can do now, more or less, and you can agree or disagree, but like, I think we can offer some specialized testing for our patients. I think we're the ones that try to uncover the root cause of what's really going on. And I think in doing that, we help expedite the process of patients figuring out what the hell is going on with their body. So our parents who are already experiencing burnout, they don't have a ton of time for trial and error over years and years when they're suffering. So If we can understand if they have an MTFHR defect and they need methylation support, or if we can run nutrient panels with Cell Science Systems or Genova, Vitamin Lab has some excellent partnerships there, and determine, okay, you're deficient in omega fatty acids. Okay, let's get those going for you. What nutrients do our patients even need? And then certainly doing hormone testing for our women who are suffering with period pain or problems every single month, or men with low testosterone, or cortisol testing, or whatever the case might be. I'm sure you have lots of tests that you like to run, but these are some of the more functional tests, I would say. I think we can all get familiar with some of our botanicals and our nootropics, because we do have a toolkit. We have a really good toolkit that expands beyond the pharmaceutical offerings, offers a lot of safe and gentle things, but also offers some really powerful medicines, things you can take over the long term, things you can take acutely, things you can mix and match. We're going to do some formulating tonight, so we'll dive into what that looks like. I'm going to go through a few botanicals, so hopefully you feel really comfortable with the materia medica that we have at Vitamin Lab. I think you can develop some protocols. You can develop some go-tos that you use for sleep, or for daytime stress, or for adaptogen purposes and things of that nature. I really want to talk about adaptogens today as well. And I think we can also recognize our own capacity and our own burnout symptoms, because we can't pour from an empty cup. A lot of us practicing, not myself, but many of us practicing, are going to be parents as well, and probably needs a dose of our own medicine at times. So we can also formulate products for ourselves at Vitamin Lab. And really what we're looking for is optimal patient experience. I do think creating personalized products is pretty special, and already kind of kicks you up a step above a lot of other, practitioner offerings. But supplements are easy self-care. Not everybody has time to go to the 1-hour kickboxing class, or to go and get a massage, or to heal their trauma with their mom, or sometimes we just don't have the damn time to do it when we're raising little kids. But supplements are things that people can manage and people can take. And I would also argue that there's a psychological benefit to taking a supplement. Maybe it's a little bit of placebo effect, if you want to call it that. I don't know that really sums it up, but you just feel like you're taking care of yourself when you're taking your product. I know I feel better when I'm taking my supplement. I feel like, okay, I'm a little bit on top of my life here. I'm doing the right thing. So I think we can supply supplements, particularly all-in-one supplements. Let's make it easy for our patients. Let's optimize nutrient status. So a lot of us are going to be running our micronutrient panels. So you'll be one of the only doctors that will ever tell a patient what kind of nutrients they actually need or actually missing. So kudos to you for that. We're going to treat the individual, because all of these parents are going to have unique things going on. And I think that really fosters a connection when you feel like you have an individualized plan. And we're really looking to build lifelong relationships. Again, kids don't just move out when they're 18 and become self-sufficient and that's it. Maybe some do, but I would say that's the severe minority of my patients. Many of us are parents for life, never stop parenting at all. So building a lifelong relationship, I think, is pretty cool. And, since Paracelsus' time, we're talking 1500s, we've known that medicine is not just a science, but it is an art of making people feel good, making people feel cared for. And I think that's a lot of our role as functional medicine providers. And if we do nothing else, that's important. And I do think personalizing, just my opinion, is the pinnacle of prescribing, because you've got the art, your listening skills, your empathy, and then you're also integrating research, science, data. So it's perfect. You're making your own things. And you're in your own lane when you formulate. Okay, let's talk about botanical medicine. Let's do what pharmaceuticals cannot do. Okay, it's a bold statement, but it's true. And it's a wonderful toolkit. I was excited to talk to you guys about herbs today. So the class of herbs we're going to talk about today are called nervines. And they have a positive effect. And there's two I'm going to give you a high level. Obviously, botanical medicine is its own sort of you can study that for years and years, but let's just do kind of a high level thing. So in botanical medicine, you have a class of herbs called nervines, of which there are thousands of them. And what their primary role is to act upon the nervous system. And so you're going to have your sedatives, which are calming and relaxing herbs that you can use during the day. And you're going to have hypnotics, which you can use during the night. A lot of our hypnotics are a little bit more advanced prescribing. There's not like too many of them on the Vitamin Lab website, but I do want to point them out to you because you can reach for them a lot. They're very safe and they work really well. So what we're looking for here with the Nervines are parasympathetic nervous system activation. And you're going to have some daytime ones that will prevent people from feeling drowsy and feeling kind of tired. We don't necessarily want that. We need our parents energized, but we need them calm. We need them rest and digest mode, right? And then we have our hypnotics to help people sleep. And then we also have our adaptogens, which improve stress resilience. So, and adaptogens have gotten a lot of shine, particularly ashwagandha. We'll talk about that. Okay, here's the thing that's important to understand, I think, when we're treating people who are stressed out. Before we have endocrine problems, like adrenal problems, preceding that, you have nervous system dysregulation. People don't end up with cortisol problems overnight. They don't. You could have them acutely or, and I'm not talking about like Addison's disease or something like that, right? We're talking about like kind of chronic burnout sort of symptoms. But before preceding that, you have many years, if not months, but probably years of your nervous system being dysregulated. So a lot of our patients, a lot of us right now are defaulting to the adaptogens, which is fine, that's okay. But like, let's not forget about our Nervines, our hypnotics and our sedative herbs, because they have a lot of different widespread benefits that I would argue really should be our first line of attack before we necessarily reach for an adaptogen. And I'm going to help you. I'm going to give you a case study that's going to help you understand the difference between the two so that you're very clear on what the indications are. But I put an image of a garden hose here because I use a lot of analogies. It's just the way that my brain functions. Maybe it will help you too. But essentially what we're talking about, we can talk about a lot of symptoms, but like my hair's falling out, I'm not sleeping well, my tummy's upset, like I feel burnt out all the time. Like there's a lot of sort of symptoms out there, right? And I don't feel like we want to be necessarily chasing after all these different symptoms. What's really happening is people are experiencing a depletion of chi, a depletion of their vital force. And in like traditional medicine, we really don't talk about the vital force of the body, the battery that you have in your body. And I explain it like this because we know what this feels like. When I explain it to you like that, you're going to understand what I mean, although you probably do already. There's going to be days when you wake up in the morning and you just feel good. It's not that you had some amazing sleep or you ate some amazing meal or something like that. You wake up and you feel pretty good. You have some pep in your step. You're ready to start your day. You're like not cranky. Things aren't bothering you. Like you're on your road, right? And there's other days you wake up and you're just tired and maybe your sleep was okay. Like there's nothing really was wrong. If I took your blood, like your cholesterol, comparing it from one day to the next is the same, or your iron from one day to the next is the same. There's no like parameter, like blood parameters that will measure out, oh, this is why you feel better on this day or the other. You're experiencing fluctuations in your vital force or your chi. And a lot of our parents, that's where the problem is that their nervous system is burnt out, their adrenals are burnt out. Okay, fine, but it's like their vitality is low. So they're finding themselves really feeling a lot of brain fog, or they're getting sick all the time, or they're constipated, but they have all of these different symptoms. But really what we want to do is nourish the body, help the nervous system restore itself, maybe reduce some cortisol in some cases. But a lot of what you'll find with a lot of the Nervine herbs that we talk about is that they don't just do one thing. And that's what makes them different than pharmaceuticals, is they're very holistic in their function. And okay, so let's talk about, I'll get into that. Oh, so in terms of the water hose. Okay, so if the vital force in chi is like a water hose, I want you to think about your adaptogens as when the well has run dry, your adaptogens are turning on the hose. Okay, so they're forcing the body to have more chi and more quote unquote energy, vital force. That's what adaptogens do. Nervines, what they do is they unkink the hose. So the water's on, the water's running, but they have a boss that's driving them crazy, or they're worried about their kid just got diagnosed with ADHD, and they have kinks in the hose. So our job is to unkink the hose. And that's what hypnotics and sedatives do, is they help unkink the hose. And adaptogens we reserve for when the well has kind of run dry, when we need to turn on the tap again. So hopefully that analogy helps a little bit, but that's how you use the two different classes of herbs. And that's kind of why the hypnotics and sedatives come first. Like, let's try unkinking the hose first. And then if that's not working, we can introduce more adaptogens. Adaptogens have a stronger effect on the system over a long period of time. And they're not always, we don't always want them for long-term use. Okay, so let's talk about relaxants and hypnotics. And so I have a lot of images here of plants, of herbs that are in the Vitamin Lab portal. So these are all there. So what we're looking at, a lot of these will be GABA agonists, weak GABA agonists, GABA being the relaxing neurotransmitter in our central nervous system. A lot of them will have mild impacts on serotonin and dopamine. But beyond the cognitive effects, every single one of these herbs has a secondary impact, whether that's on digestion. You'll find a lot of the nervine herbs. There's a lot of wisdom and intelligence in plants and botanical medicine, which is why I love it so much, because a lot of the herbs that work on the nervous system also help your digestion. And like in terms of reducing inflammation in the lining of the digestive tract, clearly there's, a nervous plexus there. So it'll work in terms of relaxing the nerve plexus, but a lot of them have a soothing quality to the digestive tract. In herbal medicine, we call them carminatives. They're digestive herbs. They help you digest food. So this one being matricaria here, or chamomile being one that many of us would know. A lot of them are cardiotonic. Like lemon balm has a cardiotonic, kind of a relaxing nature to the herb. A lot of them actually have antimicrobial impacts. They prevent the body from infection, which is very interesting. So this right here is St. John's wort, hypericum, and hypericum has an antiviral impact. So it's almost like these herbs know that like along with supporting the nervous system, we also don't want to ward off infection, because the last thing we want is this person getting sick, right? And like this is lemon balm here, Melissa officinalis, and lemon balm is particularly good at warding off HSV, herpes simplex virus. And like, isn't that interesting? When people get stressed, oftentimes they'll get cold sores, either lips or genitals, or so it'll start popping up. So like lemon balm has that wisdom to like calm the nervous system down, but also like you're not going to get that cold sore that typically like really pisses you off, right? So it's so interesting. And a lot of them also have muscle relaxant properties, particularly the hypnotics. So it's so fascinating too. Like some are really indicated for nighttime use. So this is passiflora here, passion flower, and this is valerian root right here. So it smells like stinky gym socks. This one here looks pretty, but smells something kind of gnarly. But these two here are our nighttime herbs. These are hypnotic herbs. These are both in the Vitamin Lab portal, and both of them have a muscle relaxant quality. So passion flowers works, both of these I would say work well for period cramps in particular. So if you have kind of rough sleep around your cycle, these can be a really great option as well. So here we have Avena sativa, oats, wild oat. So this is not oatmeal. This is not your Quaker oats. This is oat straw. So basically what the little oat would be extracted from. So oat straw is a real traditional herb in North America in particular, where it's native. And it has a real tonic quality. So with all herbs, they have warming and cooling capacities. And what's nice about oat and Avena is that it's very neutral, and it's a herb that's really, really underused, meaning I don't see very many people utilizing it in the portal. Like when I've looked at a lot of formulas, and I don't see a ton of people using Avena sativa, but it's one that is a lot of herbalists' favorite in terms of calming and relaxing the nervous system. It's something you can safely use over a long period of time as well, which is always very, very nice. So here we have St. John's wort, Hypericum perforatum. So this one here acts like a mild SSRI. It slows the reuptake of serotonin, so it can do its job a little bit longer. You're not going to get the serotonin syndromes or like the kind of gnarlier side effects of like antidepressants. This is like a very mild one, but it also has impacts on norepinephrine and dopamine as well. It has quite an anti-inflammatory capacity as well. So if we're thinking about depression and anxiety as having that inflammatory component to it, Hypericum is very good. And as well, it also has an antiviral component. So if somebody's getting sick a lot, maybe they have a little one that's in kindergarten and they're just constantly got a runny nose, Hypericum is really excellent. We went over valerian root. This one is a muscle relaxant. Passiflora is a muscle relaxant. And Melissa, I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on what this herb looks like, because it is in the same plant family, Laminaceae, as peppermint. So this looks quite a bit like peppermint, if you can kind of picture the herb in your mind. And so Melissa also has a wonderful digestive component to it. This is lemon balm, not lemongrass, lemon balm. So really great as a tea to help people with digestion. So again, the chamomile. So you could do like a chamomile lemon balm combination if somebody comes in and they're like, oh, I'm just getting diarrhea all the time with this stress, or like they've got tummy cramps, because some people really feel their stress in their gut. That's a wonderful combination. You can use oat, chamomile, and lemon balm. Like, oh, you're doing well. And the thing is that these are relaxants, so you can take them during the day. And you'll feel fine. You'll feel quite invigorated. This is quite an invigorating herb. Like you can, even if you just smell it, like when you smell peppermint, it kind of gives you that boost. This one has like that lemony sort of scent, lemon balm scent, but it's very invigorating. So you can be relaxed, but not tired. And that's sort of the difference. Because, a lot of the pharmaceutical medications, if you're looking at the benzodiazepams for relaxation, I guess you could call it, like they're turning the whole system down, right? And we're also looking at habit forming potentials, like, that's kind of, patients are getting wise to that. Patients are really nervous to end up dependent on something. So the effectiveness of these herbs is there. The herbs are there, but they're gentle enough that if you want to stop them, you can stop them. Like you're not going to have withdrawal side effects and things of that nature. What I will say with herbal medicine, though, is there's always a potential for allergy. So if you see this chamomile here in the Asteraceae family, if people have like ragweed allergies and stuff, chamomile can sometimes be a thing for them. And there's always a potential of liver effects. And this is something I don't think is expressed enough in herbal medicine. We just want to be like, kumbaya, like it's just so safe to be on all the herbs in the world. Well, no, I think it's always good to be running liver function panels, not immediately. It's not, these aren't high risk things, but I think it is good to just be aware. And, I would be running panels with people once or twice a year just to kind of check in, make sure everything's fine, liver and kidneys. Again, nothing here is really high risk, but you just want to be aware and you don't want to sort of just take that sort of too positive of an attitude. So yeah, so these are the relaxants, hypnotics. Okay, so let's do a little case study here. Okay, and this is actually based on a patient that I had. Obviously, names are changed and all that stuff. So he was a police officer and he was a parent, dad of 2 boys. And, I'm in Toronto, it's a big city, but this was a very specialized department. There was only a handful of police officers doing this job. It was very stressful, to say the least. It was like, it took a lot of emotional intelligence in this role, and you had to be a technically good police officer. And so he's out there, he's in the field, and his partner dies. And his partner was his absolute best friend. I don't think he would have classified it as that. They were a bit of a motley crew. Like this guy was, from the West Indies, Caribbean, and this guy was from like the Mediterranean, but they kind of grew up with both like Roman Catholic moms. They kind of just had this like bond, and they would like work together for 15 years as partners. And then his partner just had a cardiac event unrelated to work, and he was gone. He was just gone. And he was like 55 or something like that. So Lucas comes in and he's really hurt, and he doesn't talk to anybody about anything. Like a lot of, I don't know if you have a lot of law enforcement officers in your practice, but I don't have a ton, but the ones that I do have, they don't really talk about a lot of what they go through. They might talk about it with their partner, but like he didn't even talk to his wife. And it's not like he had a bad marriage. He didn't want to come home and talk about all the stuff gnarly stuff that he sees all day long at his work. So he tells me that he's in fight or flight mode. And I feel like so many patients, sorry, there's like a siren going by. Figures I'm talking about police. Sorry if that was loud, guys. So a lot of our patients, I find now, they know when they're in fight or flight mode. Like they come to you and say they're in fight or flight mode. There's so much more consciousness around this. And, he's saying every little thing pisses him off. And I find that Irritability is a huge, huge sign of burnout, that lack of empathy. And when you just, everything is just irritating. And it's hard on a lot of parents too, because you don't really want to be that parent. You don't want to be the parent that has your kids walking on eggshells, or you're screaming at them and you're losing it and the neighbors can hear you out the window, like you just don't want to be that. So he was yelling at his boys. He was actually scared that he was going to die. Like his partner had passed away like that. And it was traumatic for him. It was horrible. And he tried Cipralex, he gave the antidepressant a shot, but it didn't work for him. And, we're going to have tons of patients like that. Even if antidepressants are our first line of therapy, if that's our go-to, our preferred route, you're going to have at least 30% of your patients who feel nothing, if not feel worse. And, there's going to be another 30% that feel kind of like, I feel a little better, but it's not game changing. And then you'll probably have another 30 that feel awesome on them, right? So we have to have something to offer those people. We can't just be like, oh, keep trying antidepressants. Like, a lot of people, they're not into that. They don't want that. Maybe you don't even want that when you're having a rough time, right? And this was also situational. He wasn't like a naturally depressed person. He had his partner, his homeboy, his bestie, like they had a bromance, he passed away suddenly. Like he had all reason to be upset. So let's go through and let's formulate a product for Lucas. So we're going to focus on nervous system support. We can think about supportive ingredients. We can do anticipatory support if you really want to, dive in there, what other organ systems would help this person feel their best. Maybe we'd ask other questions. Certainly we would, about digestion and about sexual function and about pain in his body. How does he feel, or his joints? And we can also aid in delivery of nutrients, any weak pathways. So this is kind of something I took from Chinese medicine. This is not my formulating guide, but this is the ancient Chinese medicine. You choose your emperor, your 1 or 2 main herbs, you find your minister, supporting ingredients, and you can do assistant and guides. This is probably more kind of advanced prescribing. The emperor, minister, you're going to come up with great things. Let's pop over here. Okay, so we're formulating for Lucas. So let's edit that formula. And I like the standard 90 days for stress and burnout pictures, because, within 90 days, like if our formula is working, people should feel better. That's enough time for people to feel better. Typically I think I could get people to feel better definitely within 60 days, but 90 days is kind of standard. I think from a pricing perspective, it kind of works too. With Vitamin Lab, we can decide if we want capsules, we can decide if we want refills. So in this case, he's really coming to us needing acute nervous system support. So we can search by condition, which I find kind of works well. And we can search by mental health. I think that would be considered. So as I mentioned, we have some really good, we could use the combination of oat, avena. Oh, where's oat? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought Vitamin Lab had oat. That's odd to me. Let's do chamomile. Okay, because we certainly have that. And let's do along with chamomile. Let's give him something else. So what we're looking at is kind of like an acute, like a little bit of an acute depression state. So we could do St. John's wort. Hypericum, John's wort. Okay, sometimes it takes me a bit to get the typing right. Okay, so we have a chamomile St. John's wort combination. Here's a tip that I really like, 2 things that I really like combining. Now, technically they interact with each other, but I feel like in like traditional kind of pharmaceutical medication, like interactions are like not good, but in like botanical medicine, herbal medicine, functional medicine, like interactions kind of are good because you can amplify the effect of what you're looking for. So like, for example, I would use 5-HTP. I love this combination. And you see, I'm just adding the standard doses. So it's not like we have to go crazy here because we are looking for synergy. So you don't have to high dose things when you're finding synergy in things. So we have the St. John's wort, which acts like an SSRI. It slows the reuptake of serotonin. And then I like 5-HTP because it's a precursor to serotonin. So those 2 things really offer a lot of just benefit. They just work well together. There's a wonderful synergy. Another wonderful herb for the nervous system is saffron. Saffron's very uplifting, and it has a tremendous antioxidant capacity for the brain tissue, and you don't need a lot of it. 28 milligrams, I think, is standard. I think I usually use 30. So even this combination here of like chamomile, St. John's wort, 5-HTP, saffron, like you can't find that on the market. Like there's no formula like that anywhere. And that's just 4 ingredients that you've just made up right now. Certainly, you know, he's a Black man. Maybe we add in some vitamin D for him as a supportive nutrient. You know, we want to make sure that he's certainly his vitamin D status is appropriate. We could always add in magnesium, right? Like we love our magnesiums. Magnesium 3 and 8 being the one that, in theory, crosses the blood-brain barrier a little bit more effectively. You tend to need a lot of it because it's only 8% like elemental magnesium. But if this is a small formula, which it is, like it's not a major formula, like maybe we add in the magnesium 3 and 8. So then we have just like a really unique formula for him. It's nothing crazy. It's not like we've added in 18,000 different ingredients, but we have chamomile, which is supportive during the day. We have St. John's wort. We could have easily used Melissa as well. The lemon balm. We could use that as well. 5-HTP, saffron is a really good. Saffron is actually, if you have a patient who is experiencing sexual dysfunction, low sex drive, being on an SSRI, saffron has decent research. I'm not going to say it's like thousands and thousands of people, but it has decent research on helping with some of the sexual side effects of an SSRI. So that can't hurt either, really, can it? So, and then we have some vitamin D and we have some magnesium. So we formulated something for Lucas that took all of 2 minutes. I'm going to try to find that oat thing. I really thought we had a Vina, which I really love using. So I'll have to circle back on that. But again, this is the good thing about herbs. You don't have to be stuck on necessarily one herb because there's so many good ones. And again, so Vitamin Lab has these mental health, so I'm just going to X this out. Has mental health. Let me just refresh this for a second here. But you can search by condition. You can find mental health things. So you have a whole bunch of different ingredients that you can consider. So you don't have to start from scratch. And Vitamin Lab also has protocols, guys. I always want to keep people in the loop with those. So we have, like, if you want moodjevity, you know, we have like a mood product that you can add to things. So we do have things you can use, but yeah, I really like that combination of, I guess I didn't save that. I'm sorry, but that was a combination of chamomile, St. John's wort, 5-HTP, then we added in some magnesium and some vitamin D. So nothing crazy, but that's a very nourishing formula. It's very wonderful for the digestive tract as well, but for the mood, it will just uplift him. It's going to be supportive to him. If you want to run micronutrient testing and do all the rest, you can. But really, he's just coming to you saying, my partner just died. I feel horrible. I think about death all the time. He was scared shitless, basically. And so we're just providing something for him that's going to nourish him and make him feel seen and cared for. And as well, you know, I suggested some counseling support for him because again, we're not existing as an island. I was happy to have him see a therapist and a counselor and kind of talk things out. But in the meantime, while he's working things out, we can certainly give him 90 days of St. John's wort, 5-HTP, chamomile, Melissa, a lemon balm to just lift his mood a little bit. He's going to feel better. He will. Okay, so we formulated for Lucas. Okay, so let's get into adaptogens. So as I was saying previously, by the time people need adaptogen support, their nervous system has been dysregulated for a heck of a long time. So you're going to get the majority of the people that come and see you are going to benefit from nervines. They'll benefit from relaxants. They'll benefit from hypnotics. There's other uplifting types of herbs, but let the nervines be something that you explore more. The passion flowers, the lemon balms, the chamomiles, like don't, even to a certain extent, our Chinese mushrooms are very uplifting as well. And then the adaptogens come into play. So what do we have here? We have our ginsengs. We have our, this would be American and Chinese ginseng. They somewhat look the same. This is our Eleutherococcus, which is our Siberian ginseng. So this is kind of like a false ginseng. This ginseng is very warming and very active. This is a little bit more chill, but also functions like a ginseng ish, like both meaning that they have immune stimulating properties as well as so ginseng isn't necessarily something that suppresses cortisol. Ginseng works more on the whole HPA axis, whereas something like ashwagandha, withania, that is more of a cortisol suppressant. I would say that's probably our strongest cortisol suppressant. So I don't know, how many of you guys are testing cortisol as well? I'd be interested to know, because lately when I've been testing, I haven't actually found that many patients have high cortisol. Like with my salivary tests, everybody's been really quite low in the last little bit, except for I do have people that are getting that second wind at night, that kind of wired but tired feeling before they go to sleep. And I think ashwagandha could be really, really helpful for that in that situation. And then here we have our holy basil, our Tulsi, which holy basil is really a good herb because it also has the kind of nutritive benefits, also the nervine benefits. So holy basil, I would say, kind of sits in both camps. So if you want something that's both an adaptogen but also has nervine components, I would also use the holy basil. So a lot of our adaptogens are going to be able to improve our cognitive performance, particularly. Oh, this is rhodiola rosea. This one here in the middle. So rhodiola is interesting. That one also does not suppress cortisol so much. Rhodiola is really good at changing people's perceived level of stress. So the most obvious sort of example of this would be taking rhodiola before a workout. People will take it before a workout, and you'll find that you can really bust your butt and feel like pretty good. Like it really helps buffer the psychological impacts of stress. So if you have somebody who has like say you are working with an accountant and every tax season is just hell on earth for them, right? Like we have these patients that have certain professions that it's just really like crunch time for them at certain times a year. Like rhodiola would be like perfect to introduce at those sort of cruxes in people's lives, or somebody's getting ready to get married or something, which should be a happy time, but it's often very, very stressful for people. Like rhodiola would be perfect for that. Ashwagandha is not something, so ashwagandha being a cortisol sort of mitigating, sort of blunting effect. So you're not going to necessarily want ashwagandha first thing in the morning when you want that cortisol peak. You're not necessarily going to want ashwagandha right before a workout, because you want that acute sort of cortisol stress induced from a workout that goes away. Like not for like the rest of the day, but like there should be like a little bit of a cortisol peak after a good workout. So you're not going to necessarily take ashwagandha like with your morning coffee or something like that. That's not a good idea. Ashwagandha is really great for those people, like I said, that if you measure their cortisol curve, even if it's kind of flat or it's kind of just meh, like if they get that little boop at the end, like that nighttime reading, and you can just see they've got that little spike, ashwagandha is a good one. I like my ginsengs for people who really end up immune compromised with burnout. So this is really helpful for our patients that have young kids. Yeah. The other thing, okay, so ashwagandha, right now I feel like everybody gives ashwagandha to like all their patients. And, I'm not going to say that's a wrong thing to do, but like there are certain constitutions. So all of your herbs, which again is something we don't talk about in pharmaceutical medication, but all of your herbs interact with your body such that not all herbs work for all people. So ashwagandha and ginseng too, they're quite warming herbs. They're hot herbs, and they tend to be bitter herbs, meaning they can be quite stimulating for the digestive tract. But some of our patients are going to come in and they're already hot people. Like they come in and they're red in the face and they're kind of sweaty and they take their jacket off right away. Or we just have those people that are just constantly hot. They do the littlest amount of exercise and they're sweating to death. And like people like that, ginseng and ashwagandha, no, not so much, right? But better to use maybe a nervine with them, or better use a Chinese mushroom, which might have more of a cooling impact, or holy basil. Holy basil is still warming. I think all of these would be considered warming herbs. Rhodiola, I'm not so sure. That holy basil is warming, but it's not to the same degree as ashwagandha. That's why ashwagandha is good in people that have hypothyroidism, because they tend to be cold and more like sluggish and things are slowed down. And ashwagandha has that sort of hot warming nature. But if somebody has hyperthyroidism, like never give them ashwagandha. Like they're going to feel terrible. And that's why some people don't feel good on ashwagandha. They might get anxious. They might get kind of like, for some perimenopausal women who come in and it's not just that they have hot flashes, they're just hot all the damn time. Like ashwagandha, no. Okay, so just use something else. So we're looking at improving cognitive performance. Generally speaking, people will feel a little sharper on these medications. They have wonderful antioxidant, anti-inflammatory capabilities. And we're also looking at immune function and warding off disease. So adaptogens are cool, but don't forget your nervines as well, okay? So here's a typical case of somebody that needs an adaptogen, right? We have Marina. She's 35. She's a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old. And God bless everybody who has 2 children under the age of 6, okay? Because they are just, if you have any patient like that, they definitely need some sort of support, because unless they have a whole army of people helping them, they've got a lot going on. So she is sick all the time. She's sick every 6 weeks. She's getting the Sunday scaries. She used to be able to relax. She used to be super chill. Now she's not. She has no sex drive. If she never has sex again, she really doesn't care. I have a surprising number of patients who tell me that, both men and women, but I guess maybe more so women. But this is a problem if you're in a relationship. If you're not in a relationship, maybe whatever. But, I think having a sex drive is just probably a good indication overall, whether you have a partner or not. And she hurt her back lifting her son. So she used to be stronger. So these are the things that you hear with people that need adaptogens. They are sick. They have trouble getting over things. They also have a certain degree of anxiety and mental health, like that will be a piece of it. Oftentimes their sex drive is just like nowhere to be found, and they get hurt or they get injured or they just don't feel well in their body. It's very much a physical thing. So the nervines are more so, people will describe it a little bit more mentally. You might get some digestive stuff. I'm not saying that there's no physical component to that. But by the time people are in this real adrenal phase, there's a lot of physical, they really are having like a physical experience of being burnt out. Okay, so we're gonna do the same kind of formulating support. Let's do it quickly for Marina. So let's pop over. Okay, so we'll go to my formulas here, and we're gonna edit Marina's formula. Okay. Search, let's see our categories here. So we can do it by herb. So Vitamin Lab also breaks things down by herbal categories. So, certainly for Marina, I don't think it's inappropriate to use ashwagandha. I want to point out that the ashwagandha that Vitamin Lab uses is sensoril. So it's 2 to 2.4 times more potent. So if you want to use ashwagandha for a long period of time, you can give people 25, 50 milligrams. That's fine. If you want to use ashwagandha, like where you're bringing out the big guns for people, you have about 6 to 8 weeks. Or maybe you could do the 90 days with ashwagandha. But after that, you're probably going to want to break, like just cycle it. Don't use it all the time, because it does have that cortisol suppressing effect. And it's not necessarily something that you want just for like years and years and years, right? So like we could give her the standard dose of ashwagandha. We'll give it to her for 20 days or 90 days, sorry. And let's use some rhodiola. So this is going to, change the perceived sort of level of stress that she's under, which I think is nice, because again, like we're not going to be able to pay somebody's bills for them. We're not going to be able to get their mother-in-law to not be rude to them. We're not going to, get them out of their job and move into the beach in Costa Rica. We can't do that for people, but we can help them with the way that they perceive stress. What do I think about mushroom blends, reishi, lion's mane, turkey tail? Yes, and I think we should use them here. That is a wonderful, I didn't get into the whole mushroom piece. We could have gone there. There probably needs to be a separate presentation just on mushrooms and fungi, but they are fantastic adaptogenic herbs. Particularly, I would say them all, but probably lion's mane, henticules, I think that's the Latin name, is best known, although that's maybe kind of neither here nor there. But yeah, I definitely think in a case like this, like something like lion's mane, particularly because she's telling us that her immune system is trashed, like she's sick every 6 weeks. So if we can do something that improves people's vitality, but also has like an immune, it's not like Chinese mushrooms, what's good about them is that they're immune stimulating in a way, but I like to say they're more immune modulating, meaning if you have an autoimmune condition, they're not contraindicated because there's some immune stimulating herbs that like maybe astragalus or something like that, where that's contraindicated if somebody has like a rheumatoid arthritis or a lupus or something like that. You don't just want to be stimulating the immune system for months on end. But in this case, you can kind of modulate with the mushrooms. Like I use mushrooms a lot in autoimmune conditions with really good success, particularly psoriasis. I find really hard to treat. I don't know if you guys have any tips for psoriasis, please let me know about, because I find that one very tough. I find gluten dairy helps, but I do find Chinese mushrooms. I have a little mix, Immune 7, that I use. But yeah, and Vitamin Lab has a good mix of mushrooms. They truly do. So in this case, we maybe use some ashwagandha, some rhodiola, some lion's mane. She said her immune system's in trouble, so we could give her some ginseng. We could give her these are really our warming ginsengs, which are quite good for women because women tend to be kind of on the cold, damp. So we could give her maybe give her 100 milligrams of each of these. And then if there's some nutrients that you like, maybe you like giving vitamin C for people who are depleted. Certainly the adrenal glands use a heck of a lot of vitamin C. Maybe you want to give her 1,000 milligrams of that. Fine. Maybe you want to give her some zinc. So we've got chelated forms. Chelated forms are generally going to be a little bit easier to absorb. They're going to dissociate a little bit less quickly. And glycinate is a very tiny, tiny molecule. So the glycinate molecule will get absorbed and the zinc will be like passive diffusion with the glycinate molecule. So that's a little bit different than the zinc citrate. So if people get a lot of digestive upset with zinc, you don't necessarily want it on the citrate molecule will dissociate pretty much as soon as it hits the stomach acid. So, you can go for this glycinates. Albion Minerals does a nice little standardized form. So you can give her 10 milligrams of zinc. So right here, again, it's so easy to create unique formulas in Vitamin Lab. It's like stupid easy. Like right here, we have like such a unique formula. Like you're not going to find that anywhere else. Nobody's mixing, the ginsengs with the rhodiolas, with the zincs, with like, this is just like a unique formula. And there's other things you could add if, you want to add a little bit of lemon balm in there because you like it. Maybe you do want to do that. Lemon balm. Yeah, there we go. Beautiful, beautiful formula. Immune stimulating, great for her nervous system, helpful for sleep. Maybe she takes this at the end of the day. So the ashwagandha helps her wind down. You're giving her some nutrients. Like fantastic. Not hard. That was not hard. That took us 2 seconds to do. So there, we've got something for beautiful Marina. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about these nootropics because I think I find a lot of the doctors use them a lot of our practitioners. So let's just do a quick review of them so you feel comfortable with them. So all of these are in the Vitamin Lab portal as well, and you could certainly add them. So any of the formulas that we made for Lucas or Marina, we could have added any of these. One of them for Lucas, we did add the 5-HTP because I like that combination with the St. John's wort. That's a good combination, guys. That one works really well. Okay, so gamma aminobutyric acid, which is GABA, which is our major neurotransmitter that is inhibitive. Yes, it's our major relaxing, calming neurotransmitter. There's a word for that it's not coming to me right now. So it helps with hyperpolarization, so our nervous system isn't firing. It particularly works on our chloride channels. It is an amino acid, so it's got this carboxylic group, it's got the little amine group, but it's non-proteinogenic, meaning you're not going to make muscle from it. You're not going to build proteins of any sort with it. It's simply a neurotransmitter. Now, the biggest controversy with GABA is, sorry, I see a comment there, Rosemary. I'm going to come back to it. The biggest controversy with GABA is that it doesn't really cross the blood-brain barrier. So a lot of people would say GABA doesn't work. Now, I think we all know that the nervous system people's experience of stress is not limited to the brain. We tend to be in quite a reductionist medical model where if anybody has any sort of mental health issue or stress, we want to just go at the brain. They need an antidepressant, give them an Ativan, something like that. Okay, but that's not, a lot of people experience stress in their body. A lot of people are clenching their jaw, they're tightening their shoulders, they're having heart palpitations, like Rosemary said, their stomach is upset, their period is horrible, they're getting joint pain, they're achy legs, they do not feel well, they get up in the morning and their feet hurt. Like a lot of people experience stress not just as a central nervous system problem, right? So GABA, whether it crosses the blood-brain barrier or not, in some ways it maybe is good. It doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier because then it's not habit forming. We don't have issues like with the benzodiazepine medication where people have years and years to come off of them. They basically feel like they're going through the worst withdrawals of life coming off some of those medications. So, you know, GABA is more of a systemic effect, but I use it. I like it's useful. I've used it for years and people like it and people feel good on it. I don't know if you guys have had good success with it, but I definitely find GABA is helpful for people, particularly ones that experience, oh, am I not showing? I'm sorry, guys. I wasn't showing the right tab. Oh my goodness. You have to let me know this. There's always I never have a presentation that goes fully smoothly. Okay. I'm happy I noticed this. Okay. GABA. Yes. Let's talk about this. Okay. Carboxylic group, amine group. This is what I'm speaking to. So limited access. Okay, but a lot of people experience stress in their brain, not in their brain, in their body. And this is where GABA works. Theanine, okay, N-ethyl L-glutamine. A lot of people don't know that theanine is a cousin of glutamate and glutamic acid. So our major excitatory and inhibitory, that's the words I'm looking for. Excitatory neurotransmitter is glutamate. Or glutamic acid. They are essentially the same thing. They just are slightly different chemical forms based on the pH that they're existing in. The body has a pH of about 7.4, so you primarily have glutamate in your body. But theanine, you'll see, has the similar backbone. So this is glutamine right here. This here is glutamine, the amino acid. So again, we have a carboxylic group, we have an amine group. This is glutamine. This is the different R group that makes the amino acids different, okay? But you'll see this is an ethyl group. So it's got two methyl and a methyl group. That's what these little points will be. So this is theanine. It's basically a weak glutamate binder. So to chill the nervous system out, what it will do is bind to these glutamate receptors and kind of take them out of commission. So you can see that theanine and GABA, like what a nice combination there, right? So GABA is kind of up regulating the chill factor for us by like tickling those GABA receptors. And then we have theanine binding to some of the glutamate receptors, preventing them from depolarizing and making people nuts. So that's just a nice combination. So this is what theanine is, okay? It's very related to glutamate. It just weakly binds it. It can also modulate GABA receptors as well. And theanine is coming from green tea primarily. It's found in a couple mushrooms, but they're like mushrooms that I don't typically see people using. So really it's coming from tea, not just green tea, Camellia sinensis, tea, all forms of tea. That's why tea is kind of different than coffee. Okay, and then we have our 5-hydroxytryptophan. A lot of people liking their 5-HTP2. I think it's really, really good. So we have tryptophan, our amino acids. So again, you'll see the common things. This is what makes an amino acid an amino acid. We have our carboxylic group, the double bonded oxygen with the hydroxy group, and then we have our amine group there. So this is the R group. This is what makes tryptophan, right? It's different than glutamine. So this is the pathway to make serotonin. So here we have our 5-hydroxytryptophan. So it's a precursor. And you just cleave off that carboxylic group. This is tryptophan decarboxylase, that TDC enzyme there, and we have serotonin. That's where we get serotonin. So what we're doing is we're not forcing the body to do anything, because this is going to be a rate limiting step, that enzyme, how quickly that enzyme can work. We're more or less just making sure all the substrate is there so that if the body wants to make serotonin, it has everything that it needs in order to do that. And this, I would be interested to know from our genetic people if it's this TDC enzyme, because you can have SNPs in your TDC enzyme. So we could have people that have issues right here with that decarboxylation process. And so that could be, because we tend to be really focused on kind of the methylation stuff, but like perhaps this is something to look into as well. Because, you know, if somebody had an issue here, you may not want to load them with all this hydroxytryptophan, but, you know, by and large, it's safe for people. You just metabolize it. So serotonin. I also want to point out, though, we have melatonin, right? So this is, and melatonin, speaking of methyl groups, really the major difference, well, okay, so we add on this little extra, this, I can't remember the name of this group. I think it's an aldehyde, where it's a double bonded oxygen and the methyl group. Somebody, the organic chemistry nerds can help me here. But really we're methylating this here. You see that little CH3, that's a methyl group. So melatonin is like a methylated maybe an aldehyde version of serotonin. So no wonder when people are depressed, they're not sleeping well, and vice versa, right? So if we're able to help this pathway and we're able to help with melatonin a little bit too, that's great. So that's why 5-HTP taking a little bit later in the day, just making sure that we're boosting our serotonin and our melatonin. So hopefully that helps with those 3 nootropics. You feel a little bit more comfortable with those. Rosemary says, due to stressors I'm facing, I'm having severe palpitations and brain pressure. What would you recommend? I've tried saffron, lemon balm, and now GABA, but nothing seems to be helping. Let's talk separately about that. There's actually some really good, these herbs tend to be a little bit more restricted, but even herbs like hawthorn can be very helpful. Brain pressure, and what would you recommend? That I'd be interested to know what kind of what age you are, because that almost sounds like a perimenopause sort of situation where there may be sort of more to discuss there. And you're also looking for synergy, because like, I don't know if you've tried saffron, lemon balm, and GABA together, because oftentimes what happens is people are trying things separately and they're like, oh, this doesn't work. But herbal medicine, like, I'm not saying that herbalists don't use single herbs, they do, but oftentimes there's a combination. Like certainly when you go to a Chinese herbalist, they're rarely giving you one herb. So there might be a synergy there that you're looking for. Severe palpitations. Also want to make sure your iron is okay. Yeah. The elephant in the room is always, what if I do the wrong thing? What if I screw this up? What if I don't know what I'm doing? What if I mix St. John's wort and 5-HTP and the patient starts an antidepressant and I don't know what to do? But please know that Vitamin Lab has your back. The staff at Vitamin Lab are wonderful. We are learning from our customers all the time. They have a wonderful product team. They have a fantastic lab team. So just reach out to Vitamin Lab, like fantastic staff that will help you. Okay, we talked about chelate, so I won't necessarily go over that. We have our reference ranges too. So don't worry about, like, if you get into high dose territory or you mess something up and you accidentally do 10,000 units of something when you meant to do 1,000, oftentimes the team at Vitamin Lab will flag that. Not oftentimes, I would say like every time, they'll flag it and they'll bring it to your attention. So, we're really here to make sure that you're in a good place. Also thinking about palpitations and brain pressure, now that you mention it, that's an example of somebody that you wouldn't want to give an overly warming or overly stimulating herb to. Like somebody like that is going to have a hotter, stronger constitution, and they wouldn't necessarily need an adaptogen. Somebody like that would need more of a nervine, more of a relaxant, more of a hypnotic. That's another good example of like understanding the different herbs and like not wanting to overstimulate or like prescribe super, super high dose. Like that would be somebody that needs like maybe even a lower dose. What to avoid. I personally, when I was working for Vitamin Lab, would see the kitchen sink. This is what this image is. Sometimes the kitchen sink products are a little bit problematic. They're just hard to digest. They're a little bit difficult energetically on our patients. Because again, a lot of our patients, as we talked about with the garden hose, a lot of our patients, it's not necessarily that they don't, some of them don't have enough chi and vital force in order to digest a large swath of supplements. So kind of be mindful of that too. Like, does this person seem like they have a lot of vitality? Okay, I can go a little bit more high dose. I can do a little bit like more capsules. But if somebody is truly depleted, you're going to want to be a little bit more selective and maybe pick things like Melissa, like chamomile, that have a digestive component to them that are kind of built-in digestives. But again, we have your back. If you need help, reach out to Vitamin Lab. Staff on the team will help you formulate. I always like to talk about this. So it's good to have a few protocols that you can use, okay? And you can make these yourself. Like you can have your own protocols, but Vitamin Lab also has protocols. But like you'll want to have an anxiety sleep product or protocol kind of in mind. Maybe it's the passion flower valerian. So we have our hypnotics. We're using GABA. Maybe you'll mix some theanine in there. This is trimethylglycine or betaine, which is very stabilizing for the nervous system. We didn't talk about this one, but glycine is our smallest amino acid. Trimethylglycine, I just learned something interesting about that today. Trimethylglycine is very good for keeping the brain hydrated. So it has an osmolarity to it that retains moisture. So if you have a patient who does not drink water, those patients that just refuse to drink water, I'm not a great water drinker myself personally, so I'm not like sitting on a high horse here, but like TMG is good at maintaining the hydration of the brain. I think there's emerging research on it in neurodevelopmental disorders. I know some of my colleagues, I'm not an autism specialist by any means, but I know some of them use the trimethylglycine because it's very stabilizing for the nervous system and improves hydration. And then you can have your daytime stress. So I kept mentioning oats and Avena because I swear Vitamin Lab had that, but you have your lemon balm, you have your holy basil, regardless. So you have herbs like that, you have your chamomile. So your sort of daytime stress herbs, like I think it's good to have a little bit of that. And maybe you have your St. John's wort and your 5-HTP in here, like you want to uplift people, have just like a feel good feeling. You can just use them kind of low dose, so it's nothing crazy. You have your adaptogens, you have your rhodiolas and your ginsengs. These are going to be really like warming formulas for this would be great for anybody if they're hypothyroidism, they're cold all the time, maybe they're gaining a bit of weight. You can just tell they need that extra sort of like vitality boost. Adaptogens are there. And then it's good to have a mood uplift formula like a St. John's wort 5-HTP saffron when people come in, and you can tell they're experiencing anhedonia. They're just the food they used to like, they're not that into it. They're not sleeping well. Things they used to enjoy, they could care less about. They're isolating themselves. They're faking it. They're putting on the mask. Oh, everything's great. Oh, yeah, so nice to see you. And then they feel like garbage afterwards. Like we have so many patients that are kind of low key dysthymic and sort of just a little bit depressed, but they're not like racing to the psychiatrist to get all the antidepressants in the world. So it's nice for us to have our own melange of antidepressants. So yeah, I think there's some really, so all of this to say is that we can support parents. We truly can. There's so much we can do with these types of supplements, and like nowhere in that document from Dr. Murthy was there any mention of like seeing a functional medicine person who knows anything about this. But like we literally have these medicines. Like we have, I'm not going to say we have a solution to this problem because we don't, and obviously there's a lot of systemic and policy things happening, but I felt pretty bummed with looking at the results of what they were saying, because it felt like, well, I don't know how to change the prices of food and make housing more affordable. Like I don't know how to do that, but I know how to do this. I know how to help a parent come in. They can talk to me. We can have real talk. They don't have to put on a mask. They don't have to tell me they're fine when they're not fine. They can tell me about what's going on. We can have a real conversation, and I'll try to help them. I'll do my best. Like, let's come up with something acutely that can make you feel really good. And we can all do that. We can all work together. And it's just something that's within our control. And I also think the Nervine herbs, they're going to explode onto the scene. Mark my words. Like the adaptogens, ashwagandha, like people probably made billions of dollars off of ashwagandha. But there's so many more herbs out there. And it's not that we just want to follow the latest trends. We don't. But also ashwagandha's been used in Ayurvedic medicine for probably hundreds of thousands of years. But let's explore herbal medicine. I will say this: if you are in a town that has a herbalist, ask if they do a herb walk. It's such a relaxing, nice, fun thing to do in the springtime, just to learn about your local herbs. You go for a walk, a hike, and they'll point out the different herbs and the different uses. And you just it's such a cool sort of aspect of medicine that I don't think people necessarily explore enough. And I always want to point this out. I always do this every single time. I go to Amazon and I search stress, because this is what our patients do, is they go on Amazon and they search stress and look at the hot mess of things, right? You're going to get all these little clinically studied, what does that even mean? Gummies, ashwagandha gummies, and they're using single herbs, and who knows what dose they're using. Ashwagandha is just the hot product right now. So, they'll say reduce stress and increase energy. Well, obviously everybody wants that, but they're never going to tell you the contraindications of when not to use that. They don't necessarily mix things together. People don't know if they need books, if this is a coloring book. This is what our poor parents, they're already burnt out. They're already exhausted. They're at the end of their rope. They're overwhelmed. Nobody's helping them. They can't afford childcare. They can't afford organic food that they know they're supposed to be eating with their kids and stuff like that. Their kid only wants chicken nuggets. They're searching Amazon for stress, and they're getting all these weird different bottles of things. Let's just help them. Okay. We can do this. We can do this with Vitamin Lab's help. We can make them products, and we can brand them too. You can put your own nice brand on it, which I'm always a fan of. So they always think of you, but create this lifelong connection. And if you're a parent, formulate something for yourself. We need you well as well. We can't afford to lose our healthcare providers. I think a lot of us are already onboarded with Vitamin Lab, but make sure you meet with Christina, your onboarding specialist. Tap in with your account managers, Sarah and Carolina. Get familiar with these different ingredients. Get some protocols under your belt so you don't have to reinvent the wheel each time, guys. Don't sit there and don't do that. Just have your few protocols, mix and match them. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be a heavy cognitive load every time you sign up, and use the protocols Vitamin Lab's already made. Vitamin Lab already has some great protocols. So yeah, we have your back. We're here to support you. And here's your code, OctoberWeb15. Okay, so 15% off your next order until the end of the month. Please use this code, okay? OctoberWeb15. Practitioners at GetVitaminLab.com. Would you put together her protocol for me according to your symptoms? Hi, Rosemary. Yeah, chat with your account manager, Carolina or Sarah. They'll be happy to help you put something together for you, I'm sure. Yeah, there's going to be, but there needs to be some questions here because the brain pressure and palpitations, we want to take that seriously. I want to make sure you've got some cardiac help there. Or just make sure there's nothing else going on. 64 adult children stressors, burnt out. Yeah, I know the adult children, that's something too that's like so new. Oh, I just had a patient. She's just a beautiful, beautiful woman. And she's like in her 70s, very vibrant, playing pickleball. And she's just like, she's just out there in the world living. If you saw her like out, you just think, wow, this woman just has it together. Like she's very stylish. She's like slim and beautiful. And she's just like a wonderful woman. And she's very kind and sweet. And she has a 40-year-old son who just passed away from an overdose. And nobody would know that for the past 20 years, she's been dealing with a son who has severe opiate addiction issues because she's from that generation that just puts on a happy face. And it's just incredible the amount of burden that parents are dealing with. And again, she's in her 70s parenting. She's still parenting. Her son lived with her. She was still cooking meals for her son, doing laundry, trying to keep him sober, like all of this stuff. Like parenting has really, really changed. And the role has really expanded and become so all-encompassing. 60, yeah, and it's crazy that because you kind of assume, I think, like when you have kids that like 18s and they're going to move out and they'll go to university or college and everything's it's really, really changed. It's such a lifelong thing. Yeah. Well, Rosemary, if you want to reach me, I can give you my my email. You can reach me there. But yeah, well, thanks everybody for joining me. That's the main thing. Thank you. I really appreciate our practitioners. You guys are a smart bunch. I always love seeing what you guys are formulating and making. Your clinics are all super cool. You all do kind of different things. We have, physician assistants, nurse practitioners, shout out nurse practitioners, chiropractors. We got like such an interesting mix. But yeah, thank you everybody for joining me. It's been a pleasure. Take care.